The call for help. The last transmission. Commander Zephys of the Velthran Empire pressed his trembling claws against the communication console as another explosion rocked their orbital station. Outside the reinforced windows, the golden spires of Velthran Prime burned like dying stars against the void. The Skarn invasion fleet had surrounded their world 3 rotations ago, and now the end was near. The Velthrans were an ancient race, proud builders of art and philosophy who had governed 17 star systems for over 2 millennia. Their crystalline cities reflected light in patterns that told stories of peace and wisdom. They had never known true war until the Skarn came. Like a plague of locusts from the outer rim, Zephys watched another of their defensive platforms explode in silent fury. The Skarn ships moved like mechanical vultures, black and angular, designed only for destruction. His people were scientists and artists, not warriors. Their elegant vessels had been torn apart in the first day of fighting. "Sir," whispered his aide, Dyril, her blue skin pale with fear, "the council chambers have gone dark. I think... I think they're all gone." Zephys closed his 4 eyes and felt the weight of his species' extinction pressing down on him. They had sent distress calls to every known civilization in their sector. The Corvan Republic was too far away. The Zenthari Collective had refused to help, claiming neutrality. Even their oldest allies had abandoned them to save themselves. But there was one option left, one that made his blood run cold. Deep in the Velthran archives, buried in texts so old they predated their first spaceflights, was a reference to a world called Earth. The coordinates were incomplete, corrupted by age, but the descriptions were terrifying. A planet of predators who had turned their violence into art, beings who thrived on conflict and emerged stronger from every war. The ancient texts called them the Sleeping Terror, and warned that they should never be awakened. But desperation made monsters of even the most peaceful species. Zephys input the fragmented coordinates into their long-range transmitter. The signal would take weeks to reach the distant system, if it reached anything at all. He recorded his message in the universal trade language, his voice breaking with each word. "This is Commander Zephys of the Velthran Empire. Our worlds burn, our people die. We have read the old warnings about your kind, but we have nowhere else to turn. If you receive this transmission, we beg you, help us. We will give you anything. Technology, resources, entire star systems. Just please, ... help us survive." The transmission launched into the void just as the Skarn broke through their final defensive line. Earth's answer captain, Sarah Chen, stood in the command center of humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, the EU's Prometheus, staring at the alien message that had changed everything. The transmission had reached Earth's outer monitoring stations 47 days ago, and the response had been immediate and unanimous. Humanity was going to war. Sarah was a veteran of the resource, wars that had nearly destroyed Earth's civilization 3 centuries ago. She had seen humanity at its darkest and most desperate. She knew what her species was capable of when pushed to the edge, and she knew why the old alien texts spoke of them with such fear. "Captain," said her first officer, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, a man whose scars told stories of Earth's violent past. "We're receiving another transmission from the Velthran system. It's just screaming now." Sarah nodded grimly. They were still 3 days out from the Velthran system, but their advanced sensors could already detect the signs of total warfare. Entire planets showed the heat signatures of orbital bombardment. The Skarn were thorough in their destruction. Any Word from the advance team, she asked. Radio silence from Team Alpha since they entered Skarn space yesterday, Webb replied. But that's expected. They know their mission. Sarah walked to the massive viewport and gazed at the stars ahead. Somewhere in that darkness, an entire civilization was dying while another celebrated their genocide. The Skarn had made one critical mistake when they chose to exterminate the Velthrons. They had given humanity a reason to come home. First contact, the remaining Velthron survivors huddled in the underground shelters of their capital city as the surface burned above them. Commander Zephyrs had given up hope of rescue when his sensors detected something impossible: ships dropping out of hyperspace. At the edge of their system, the vessels were unlike anything in their databases. Sleek and predatory, they moved with a fluid grace that spoke of centuries of evolutionary design. But what terrified Zephyrs was their size. Each ship was easily twice the mass of a Skarn battlecruiser, and there were dozens of them. Cirth whispered, her voice filled with awe and terror. They're broadcasting on our emergency frequency, in our language. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human female with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the memory of countless battles. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried an undertone that made Zephyrs' scales ripple with primitive fear. Commander Zephyrs, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Prometheus. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Zephyrs felt his heart hammering in his chest. The legends spoke of humans as monsters wearing the faces of angels, capable of kindness and cruelty in equal measure. Looking at this human female, he could believe both. Captain Chen, he managed to say, the Skarn have orbital superiority. Our defenses are broken. We have perhaps hours before they begin the final bombardment of our cities. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Commander, we're going to need you to broadcast a message to the Skarn fleet. Tell them that Earth has answered your call. Tell them that humanity's children are coming home. I don't understand, Zephyr said. Children, you will, Sarah replied. Trust me, Commander. In 6 hours, this war will be over. But first, we need to have a conversation about payment. The price of salvation. The meeting took place aboard the Prometheus, in a conference room that seemed designed to intimidate. Zephyrs and 3 surviving members of the Velthron High Council sat across from Captain Chen and her senior staff. The humans appeared relaxed, almost casual, but Zephyrs could sense the predatory alertness that lurked beneath their calm exteriors. You said you would give us anything, Captain Chen began without preamble. We're here to collect. Of course. Zephyrs replied quickly. Our technology, our resources, whatever you need. We don't want your technology, said Commander Webb with a slight smile. We've been watching your broadcasts for weeks. We know everything about your capabilities. Frankly, you're about 200 years behind us in most areas. Zephyrs felt his blood freeze. If humanity was more advanced than the Velthrons, and the Velthrons had been helpless against the Skarn, then what did that make humanity? Then what do you want? Asked Council Elder Vyrix, her voice barely a whisper. Captain Chen leaned forward, and for a moment Zephyr saw something ancient and terrible in her eyes. We want your story. We want you to remember. We want you to tell the galaxy exactly what happened here when your enemies thought they could commit genocide without consequence. That's all, Zephyrs asked, confusion clear in his voice. That's everything, Sarah replied. You see, Commander, humanity learned a long time ago that there are only 2 ways to deal with bullies. You can hide from them, or you can make them afraid to bully anyone ever again. We chose the second option. The conference room's lights dimmed, and the main screen came alive with tactical displays. Zephyrs watched in growing horror as hundreds of small objects appeared on the sensors, moving through the Skarn fleet like ghosts. "What are those?" Eldervirex asked. "Those," said Captain Chen, "was something that might have been pride or might have been pity. Are humanity's children coming home? The children of Earth, in the cold vacuum between Velthrin Prime and its burning moon." Something stirred in the wreckage of a destroyed Velthrin frigate. The wreckage had been drifting for days, ignored by the Skarn as just another piece of debris from their conquest. But inside the twisted metal, something that had once been human opened its eyes. Project Prometheus had been humanity's greatest and most terrible achievement. When Earth's scientists had finally cracked the secret of human consciousness transfer, the military applications had been immediate and horrifying. Why send living soldiers to die in space when you could send their minds in bodies that didn't need air, food, or rest? The thing that had been Sergeant David Park flexed its new limbs, feeling the strange sensation of mechanical muscles responding to thoughts that had once controlled flesh and bone. His new body was a masterpiece of human engineering, humanoid, in shape but built for the void, with reinforced bones, armored skin, and weapons integrated into every limb dot around him. Hundreds of other consciousnesses awakened in their new forms. They were volunteers all, soldiers who had died in Earth's wars and chosen to return as something else, something more suited to the darkness between stars. They were humanity's children, and they were coming home to remind the galaxy why ancient species spoke of Earth in whispers. David activated his communications array and heard the familiar voices of his squad mates. Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had died in the Jupiter mining station incident. Corporal Williams, killed in the asteroid belt skirmishes. Sergeant Chen, who had volunteered after watching her family die in the Martian bombings. They were all here now, reborn in metal and fury, ready to teach the Skarn the lesson that humanity had learned centuries ago, that death was not the end, but merely a transformation. "Alpha Squad, sound off," David transmitted. "Rodriguez here, systems green, ready to party." Williams reporting. "These new bodies are sweet. I can see through 6 different spectrums." Chen here. "I've got enough firepower in my left arm to level a city block." One by one, the squads reported in hundreds of human consciousnesses, each housed in a body designed for one purpose, to show the galaxy what happened when you made humanity angry. "All squads, this is Prometheus Command," came Captain Chen's voice over the comm. "You know your mission. The Skarn think they understand warfare. Show them how wrong they are." David smiled, a expression that his mechanical face rendered in angles of steel and fury. The Skarn had never fought humanity before. They were about to learn why that was a very good thing for them. Until now, the children of Earth began to move through the darkness, and the war that would reshape the galaxy was about to begin. The reckoning, the nightmare begins. Admiral Krex of the Skarn Third Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Worldbreaker, watching the final bombardment preparations with satisfaction. The Velthrin civilization would be extinct within hours, their artistic cities reduced to radioactive ash. It would be their greatest victory yet. The Skarn were a warrior race, evolved from pack hunters on a world where only the strong survived. They had conquered 43 civilizations across the galaxy, each victory adding to their reputation as unstoppable destroyers. The Velthrins had been easy prey, their peaceful nature making them helpless against Skarn brutality. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we've detected some kind of debris field moving through our formation. Probably wreckage from the earlier battles. Krex barely glanced at the display. Ignore it. Focus on the bombardment coordinates. I want every city, every outpost, every trace of Velthran culture erased. But something was wrong. The debris field was moving too purposefully, too coordinated, and it was accelerating. Sir, the tactical officer said, his voice rising with alarm. The debris... It's not debris. It's moving under its own power, and it's heading directly for our ships. Krex turned to study the tactical display more carefully. Hundreds of small objects were weaving through his fleet with impossible precision. Too small to be ships, but too organized to be natural phenomena. As he watched, one of them passed close enough to a Skarn destroyer for his sensors to get a clear reading. What he saw made his blood run cold. It was humanoid in shape, but clearly mechanical, moving through space without any visible propulsion. System, its limbs ended in weapons that his computer couldn't identify, and its face was a masterpiece of predatory design. But what terrified him most was its eyes, which seemed to burn with an intelligence that was very much alive. What in the void are those things? He whispered. His answer came in the form of a transmission broadcast on all frequencies. The voice was human, female, and carried a tone of absolute authority. Skarn Fleet, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Forces. You have committed genocide against the Velthran people. Humanity has come to collect the debt. Krex felt his courage waver. He had never heard of this humanity before, but the presence surrounding his fleet made his warrior instincts scream warnings. Unknown vessel, you are interfering with Skarn military operations. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. The human's laughter was like ice in his veins. Admiral Krex, you've made two critical errors. First, you assumed that death was the end for my people. Second, you've never fought a species that learned warfare from necessity rather than pleasure. What do you mean? Krex demanded. I mean, Captain Chen replied, that you're about to meet humanity's children, the ones who died so that others could live, the ones who volunteered to become something beyond death so they could protect the innocent. On his tactical display, the humanoid figures began to move with terrifying purpose. The children's war sergeant, David Park's new body, moved through space like a dancer, every motion calculated for maximum efficiency. His squad had taken position around a Skarn heavy cruiser, and now they began their work. The Skarn ship's hull was thick, designed to withstand conventional weapons, but David's arms transformed, revealing molecular disruptors that could tear apart matter at the atomic level. He placed his hands against the hull and felt the metal dissolve beneath his touch. Around him, his squadmates were doing the same thing. They didn't need to destroy the entire ship, just create enough breaches to get inside. Once they were in, the real terror would begin. Breach complete, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. Entering the ship now. David followed her through the opening they had created, his new senses adapting instantly to the ship's interior. The Skarn had never developed defenses against this kind of attack because no species had ever been desperate enough to develop this kind of weapon. The first Skarn they encountered was a security guard, a massive creature with natural armor and weapons evolved over millions of years. It saw David and raised its plasma rifle, but David was already moving. His hand shot out, grasping the alien's throat with precise pressure that crushed its windpipe. In seconds. But David didn't kill it. Instead, he activated his suit's psychological warfare systems. broadcasting directly into the scanner's mind images of what humanity had endured. The Mars colonies burning, Earth's cities in ruins, children dying in underground shelters while the surface burned. The Skarn warrior collapsed, not from physical damage but from the sheer weight of humanity's pain. David left it alive but broken, knowing it would spread terror throughout the ship. Remember, Captain Chen's voice echoed through their communications. We're not here just to win. We're here to teach. The lesson across the Skarn fleet. The same scene played out dozens of times. Humanity's children moved through ship after ship like ghosts of vengeance. But they didn't simply kill. They taught. Each Skarn they encountered was forced to experience humanity's memories. The resource wars that had nearly destroyed Earth. The decades of rebuilding that had followed. The careful balance between humanity's capacity for violence and their desperate desire for peace. Corporal Williams found herself in the engine room of a Skarn battleship, surrounded by terrified engineers. These weren't warriors, but technicians. Civilians caught up in their species' endless hunger for conquest. Please, one of them whispered in broken universal tongue. We are not fighters. We fix machines only. Williams paused, her mechanical face showing something like sympathy. Then you understand, she said. You know what it's like to build something beautiful only to watch it be destroyed. She activated her memory broadcast, but instead of showing the Skarn engineer humanity's wars, she showed him their rebuilding. The schools they had constructed on the ruins of cities, the gardens they had planted in radioactive soil, the art they had created from the ashes of their civilization. This is what your warriors destroy, she said gently. This is what you help them erase every time you repair their ships. The Skarn engineer collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his alien face. I did not know, he whispered. We were told the conquered species were enemies, threats to our survival. They told you that, Williams agreed. Because it's easier to destroy when you don't see the beauty of what you're destroying. She left him alive, knowing that he would carry her message to others. The Admiral's choice on the bridge of the Worldbreaker. Admiral Krex watched his fleet tear itself apart from the inside. His warriors were reporting impossible things, enemies that felt no pain, weapons that destroyed matter itself, and most terrifying of all, visions that drove his soldiers insane. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 ships. They say the humans are in their heads, showing them things. Krex's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Skarn had never surrendered in their entire history. They were bred for war, evolved for conquest. But somehow, these humans had found a way to break that conditioning. Admiral, came Captain Chen's voice over the com. Your fleet is finished. Your warriors are learning what it means to be haunted by the innocent you've destroyed. But I'm going to give you a choice. What choice? Krex snarled. Surrender now, and live to remember this lesson. Continue fighting, and my children will show you what humanity learned about warfare that your species never will. And what's that? Krex demanded. That the greatest victory isn't destroying your enemy, Captain Chen replied. It's making them understand why they were wrong. Krex looked around his bridge, seeing the fear in his crew's eyes. Outside, his fleet was in chaos, his warriors, broken not by superior firepower, but by the weight of their own actions, reflected back at them. For the first time in his life, Admiral Krex of the Skarn Third Fleet transmitted a message of surrender. The new galaxy 3 months later, Commander Zephyr stood in the rebuilt council chambers of Velthron Prime, addressing a gathering of representatives from across the galaxy. The story of humanity's intervention had spread like wildfire, carried by the surviving Skarn who had experienced the children's memories. The humans could have destroyed the Skarn fleet in minutes, Zephyrs told the assembled delegates. Their technology is centuries beyond anything we possess. But they chose a different path. They chose to teach rather than destroy. In the audience, representatives from dozens of species listened with expressions ranging from awe to terror. The Corvan Republic had immediately opened diplomatic relations with Earth. The Zenthari Collective had offered a formal apology for their failure to help the Even the mighty hegemony of Zeril had sent ambassadors, seeking to understand this new power that had emerged from the Rim. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the podium, her face calm but her eyes holding the same dangerous intelligence that had terrified Admiral Krex. When she spoke, her words carried across the galaxy. Humanity doesn't seek conquest, she said. We've seen what that path leads to because we've walked it ourselves. We nearly destroyed our own world through endless war, but we learned something from that experience, that the strongest civilizations are built not on the ruins of their enemies, but on the foundation of their compassion. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. The children you met out there, the ones who saved the Velthrons, they were volunteers, soldiers who died defending the innocent and chose to return as something else so they could continue that mission. They are proof that death is not the end, but transformation. What do you want from us? Asked the Zenthari ambassador, his crystalline form shimmering with nervous energy. Sarah smiled, and for a moment Zephy saw both the angel and the monster that humanity could be. We want you to remember, she said. We want you to tell your children and your children's children about what happened here. We want the galaxy to know that there are consequences for genocide, that there are those who will answer when the innocent cry for help. And if we refuse? Asked the hegemony representative. Sarah's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes that made the entire assembly shiver. Then you'll meet more of humanity's children, and next time they might not be in such a teaching mood. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, many stealing glances at the human captain, Zephyrs approached Sarah. Will they really remember? He asked. Will this change anything? Sarah looked out the window at the rebuilt city below, where Velthran artists were already creating monuments to the fallen and the saved. They'll remember, she said softly, because some lessons can only be learned through experience, and we just gave the galaxy an experience they'll never forget. In the darkness between stars, humanity's children continued their vigil, waiting for the next call for help, ready to remind the galaxy that some things were worth dying for, and some things were worth becoming monsters to protect. The age of unopposed conquest was over. The children of Earth had come home, and the galaxy would never be the same.